Good morning, YouTube family. Good afternoon and good evening, wherever you might be. Welcome to Escape from Crazytown. And welcome to Happy Crappy Hour. It is Thursday, and I've been running around like a crazy person this morning. Just trying to get so much done, and it's like the time just goes too quickly. What? Well, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited that you're here today because I have, oh my gosh, so much going on. A lot of times I take my topics from, real life and what's happening right now in the world or in my life or in some of my viewers' lives when they comment. I love to pull from that and talk about these topics because we are going through it at the same time it's, right now as it's happening. So it's good to get a little guidance, a little perspective, and get plugged back into reality, you guys. So today, let me do this real quick. I gotta make sure I don't get disturbances. Um, Good morning, Jihad, and good morning, Rissa Riss. Good to see you here. I'm gonna get onto live chat. All right. Oh, I don't know why I'm not able to see some things or scroll back, but good to see you guys here. I'm glad you're joining us today. Oh my gosh, what a topic we have today. You know, how psychopathic is the narcissist? This gets me thinking. I started thinking about this because a lot of times what I try to as I try to understand a narcissist, I try to get into their mind. And it is a very scary place to be, honestly. And I hate going there because I don't want to get stuck in their crazy, cyclical, destructive thinking. It is very damaging to yourself when you start thinking the way they do. And that's why they're so damaging to themselves and everybody around them. But in order for me to try to understand like what's driving them, how can they make, sense of this insanity that they live in and they try to impose on us, I get in there to see if they're what is the logic, right, in their head. And I got to tell you, it's absolute crazy town. And today I want to share with you, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. My husband gave me a printout, which was just the introduction to a book from Ludwig von Mises, who I'm not quite sure, but I think he was a philosopher. I think he was an economist, possibly politician. I don't know too much about him. My husband does. But he says, oh my gosh, honey, this is almost exactly what you talk about. And I was like, what? How is this an economist or someone who talks about economy and the public forum and government? How can this person be talking about narcissistic abuse, right? But they do. And I'm going to read some of the introduction to you guys because it's absolutely shocking how on point this man was. And I think this guy lived a long, long time ago. I want to say at least 100 years ago, probably more. But before we get into that, I want to welcome you to Crazytown. Not Crazytown, sorry, to Escape from Crazytown, because this is, oh, wow, you know what? My mind has been in Crazytown today. And that's why I've been running kind of late, because I'm trying to make sense out of Crazytown. And I'm like, got to get out of here, because if I stay too long, I just go nuts. I really do. And I think some of you guys understand that because, or maybe all of you guys understand that because you've been there. You've been in their crazy town and you're like, what the heck is happening before my eyes as they explode and argue for hours on end and you just cannot reason with them. This is what narcissistic people are like. You just cannot break them out of that. And why is that, right? Why is that? That's why I want to talk about how psychotic is a narcissist. And I got to tell you, they're very psychotic. They have lost their freaking minds. They can behave like normal people somehow. They can interact with us and work with us or work amongst us, right? They're horrible co-workers. They're fun people sometimes, but then they're horrible mates. They're horrible friends. They're just so self-focused and so self-indulged and delusioned that you just cannot reach them. And this is why I want to talk about it today because it's dangerous. It really just is. quite dangerous to continually interact with narcissists. I mean, to live with them, for one, you don't want to live with a narcissist. If you don't have to, it will drive you absolutely crazy. There are some benign narcissists out there, and by benign, I mean they may not be physically violent with you, and that could be because physically they're just weak, right? They could be elderly. So they may not be physically dangerous to you, but they are mentally dangerous still because they live in such a psychotic world, and they pull you into it, and to the point where you get disconnected from reality. So you have to be careful of that. Yeah, good to see all you guys hopping on. Gloria, good to see you. Yeah, says the mask hasn't slipped off yet. I feel the same way. I actually have so much anger in me now. You are not alone, Gloria. I'm normal. Good to see you. Says you did nothing wrong if they really were a narc. Much to learn. Yes. Obi, good to see you. Says narcs not doing better with the new supply. They're not. It's a total illusion. And no more narcs. Good to see you here. Yeah, absolutely. You know, the narcissist is the issue. You guys are all on target with that. I'm glad you've come to that conclusion. I'm glad you understand that. One thing I do ask for you guys to do, though, is to continually check yourselves. And this is something we can do. And that's the good news for us, is that we can get plugged back into reality by checking ourselves, by facing the facts, by facing reality, by taking responsibility, right, for our own choices and our own what was I going to say? Our own choices and our own mistakes. We need to take responsibility for that. Narcissists do not. They continually reflect, they continue to project, they continually blame shift. And oh my gosh, so I'm going to get into this, but I do want to ask you what your happies and crappies are, because this is what we learn from you guys. We learn if what you've done this week was good and improved your life, you want to keep doing that. So that's your happy. Your crappy is, yeah, you made a mistake. And this is part of the reflection part, you guys. You made a mistake. You did something wrong this week. Something did not go the way you wished it did. How did you respond, right? And if you didn't respond well, find out why. Examine that. See if there is something else you could have done. Do you need to apologize? Do you need to take responsibility for something? Do you need to correct something? That is all part of growing. That's the thing that narcissists cannot do. But you can, and you have to do that in order to heal. If you stay stuck in the narcissist's crazy town, in their way of thinking, blaming others, not taking responsibility, not taking control of your own life, not making good choices, if you start to become like the narcissist or continue to be like the narcissist, because a lot of times if you've lived with one, if you've been raised by one, you tend to take on a lot of their characteristics. If you continue those characteristics, you will destroy yourself just the same way that the narcissist destroys themselves. So, I'm trying to think, what did I do this week? Oh my gosh, you guys, I swam with dolphins. It was so amazing. It was so awesome. So my husband and I, we get into the water and we're swimming around, and we see, well, I didn't see it. My husband saw a fin in the distance, maybe I want to say 50 yards out. And at first he was a little concerned, right? Like, we better head back to the shore. And right after that, though, he saw about 3 or 4 more fins. And that's when he realized, oh, these are dolphins. And the dolphins started coming closer to us. And they were about maybe 20 feet from us, swimming around. I wasn't sure if they were under us or not, but I didn't want to stick my face in the water because the water was kind of murky at this point. But it was so cool to see these dolphins come up. I saw 3 fins and 2 faces come up at the same time. So at least 5 dolphins were around us. And they were just hanging out, like checking us out. Who are these people? Or what are these things? So, getting back to nature. I love that. That was so refreshing and fills me up. And that was my happy. And I have to remind myself to continually try to get out and swim or jog or hike or kayak. These are things that I love to do, but I don't always do it because it takes a little bit of planning, and you have to clear your calendar. But you have to do that for yourself. Do something good for yourself every week. I have a little sign in my house that says something like, do everything, do something, do one thing each day that makes you smile. Do one thing each day that makes you smile. So do that for yourself. That's a worthy thing to build on and continue doing. Um, Let me see some of the comments here. I want to see what you guys are saying. Gloria says, I feel so alone. Nobody I know has dealt with this, so no one understands except for my YouTube family. Oh my gosh, Gloria. Absolutely right. It is so true. And then the people who get caught up in the narcissist crazy town and in their um, thinking, they believe the narcissist, or they don't see anything wrong because they're so far engulfed in the narcissist explanations that they don't see how irrational it is. They don't see how psychotic it is. And yes, we're on the outside now, and it does feel alone because you're trying to pull people out with you, and yet they don't come out. They don't see anything wrong. It's sort of like, oh, that story about a frog. I don't know if all of you guys have heard this by now, but it's like the best way, if you throw a frog into hot water, it'll jump out right away, right? But if you leave a frog in a pot of cool water or tepid water, it will stay there. And then you turn on the heat, turn on the burner, and it slowly starts to heat up. The frog will not notice. It will start to notice, like, I'm a little uncomfortable, but by the time they realize that the water is boiling and they're dying, it's too late. They don't have the energy, they don't have the capacity to get out. That is what it's like in the narcissist world. People who get caught in the narcissist world stay there, and they think, oh, everything's great. First of all, it seems like everything's great. This is tepid water. This is pretty comfortable. I'm happy, and it's clean, and I'm staying, happy and comfortable in this world, and this narcissist is doing things for me, and this is a great relationship. And little by little, they introduce their psychosis, and you don't notice at first, and you're like, whoa, that's a little bit out of the ordinary. They explode suddenly over something really simple, like where's the remote control, and they go crazy, or who left the light on in the bathroom, and they just go nuts, and you're like, that's weird. Why would they go crazy over something small like that? Then you just chalk it up to, well, maybe they had a hard day, maybe they, something was irritating them. We make excuses for them. And then not only that, they of course make their own excuses. We accept those excuses as the water starts to boil. And we don't notice until it's too late. We've been isolated. We've been pulled into their world. We've even we advocated for them. We've even told other people how wonderful they are and how great of a partner they are to us. And so other people, especially your family and your friends, are like, well, you used to think this person was amazing and the best thing that ever happened to you and was your soulmate. So how can you now say that they're the devil, right? Like, what? So to them, you're the one who's going crazy, and they can't follow what's going on. Yeah. So Gloria, I totally get it. We do feel alone because our family and our friends don't understand unless they've been through it. And even if they've been through it and they did not recognize that it was narcissistic abuse, they're not going to understand it now. They just won't. Yeah. So I'm so glad you guys are here. It's the topic I have for you guys today. I have to share with you. And the reason why I ask, how psychotic are they, is because we have to be aware for our own safety, not to fall back into another relationship where we think, oh, the water is tepid. This is so calm and so comforting and so peaceful and so good. And then as the temperature starts to rise, we ignore all the red flags. We don't want to ignore the red flags this time around, right? Or ever again. Or get in too deep. There are going to be times when we're going to miss a red flag here and there. It's just going to happen because we're not perfect, right? But don't stay for the 5th and 6th and 50th red flag, right? The next time around. Yeah. Yeah. Risk, don't take antidepressants. Don't do it. Do natural things. Like I was saying about the happy, do something every day that makes you smile. At least one thing every day that makes you smile. If it's watching a comedy show, do that. If it's watching a comedian, which I love, dry bar comedy, I always direct you guys to that. Watch that. Make yourself, get yourself laughing at least once a day. It is not just therapy, it is good for your heart, it's good for your body, it's good physically for you to create endorphins, good endorphins in your body. And that helps you pull your mind out of depression and out of the darkness. And and that's a lot of times what depression is, produced by, or continues to produce these bad hormones that continually keep you depressed. So you need to um, come against that and fight that with good endorphins and good hormones. And so laugh every day. Find something that helps you to laugh and enjoy. Dore, good to see you. Ah, yeah. Says I'm not the best cook, but I cook a lot, and he ate every time his plate was clear. Then he would complain I'm cooking bad. I asked him to tell me what dish he didn't like, and he could not answer. Yeah, they live in their crazy town where they want to destroy and pull down people, and they do this to lift themselves up, obviously, right? I mean, maybe not so obvious to everybody, but they tear you down because they're feeling lousy about themselves. Well, you guys, I want to share with you what I was saying earlier, that my husband had handed me this introduction, and it's too long to read. It probably would take the whole show for me to read just the introduction, but I will read to you a few of the things that are written here by Ludwig von Mises. It's a book that he wrote called Liberalism. Let me see. It was Literature and Revolution, translated by R. Strunsky in 1925. Okay, so I'm just reading the bottom part of this so you guys know. If you want to look it up, Mises, Mises. Look him up. He's a great theorist on economics, and will help you understand what's going on right now with Marxism. And I almost titled this Happy Crappy Hour, Marxism, Marxism, Narcissism on steroids, because it is. And I'll explain why. This was written way, I don't know, a century ago. It says, Mises says, a delusion. Hold on, let me see if I can start from the beginning. Not the beginning, but one of the paragraphs. Okay. He talks about at the beginning how when a man or a regular person fails, they will then see what they did that caused the failure, fix the problem, and work harder to improve themselves and improve their condition. But this is not so with a narcissist, all right? But this is how Mises talks about them. He talks about them as neurotics. He says the neurotic cannot endure life in its real form. It is too raw for him, too coarse, too common. To render it bearable, he does not, like the healthy man, have the heart to carry on in spite of everything. That would not be in keeping with his weakness. Instead, he takes refuge in a delusion. A delusion is, according to Freud, itself something desired, a kind of consolation. It is characterized by its resistance to attack by logic and reality. It by no means suffices, therefore, to seek to talk the patient out of his delusion by conclusive demonstrations of its absurdity. In order to recuperate, the patient himself must overcome it. He must learn to understand why he does not want to face the truth and why he takes refuge in delusions. Did you guys catch that? I mean, his writing is a little bit hard to understand. It's proper English, and let me explain to you. He's saying that in order for this neurotic to endure his life, he creates a delusion for himself to live in. He doesn't live in reality, because if he lives in reality, the truth is too hard for him to take. It's too hard for the neurotic or the narcissist, in what we're talking about, to admit their faults, to see where they went wrong and fix it. They need to blame other people because they are so weak-minded and weak in their self-esteem, in their self-worth. And Mises goes on to say that you cannot talk this type of person out of their delusion by giving them facts, evidence, and demonstrate to them how absurd their thinking is. You can't do it. The only thing that they can do in order to recuperate or heal is they have to do it themselves. They have to overcome it themselves and learn and understand why they don't face the truth and why they take refuge in their delusion. And that's why it's so different for us, because even as Gloria here is talking about, I think it was Gloria, I'm sorry. Yeah, talking, and Rissa, talking about depression. Instead of giving and creating a world of depression where we feed it and we take care of it and we coddle it, we want to ask why. Why am I depressed? And what can I do? What can I physically do? And I know there's a time in our recovery at the very beginning, or possibly through the middle, where we just feel so exhausted and tired. And in those times, get rest. Definitely get rest. Fill your mind, though, with positive things. Read positive things. Even though you're tired, instead of giving into watching more horrible things or negative or critical or dark things, you want to watch positive things. Now, there was a time, and there may be a time for you guys too, where you do focus on dark things because it kind of makes you think, well, at least my life isn't that bad, right? There was a period there for about 2 or 3 years where I watched crime shows, true life crime shows, because it kind of pulls me back to reality. Even though that reality was really harsh and horrible, it pulled me out of this delusion and depression that I was in and back into reality. Like, even though it's somebody else's reality, right? And it made me see the world maybe not as just unsafe, but it also helped me to see the goodness in the world, because the detectives were such good people. They were people who would not give up. So even in the midst of such a negative and ugly story as criminal stories, where the victims, suffer incredibly, there are still people who stood by and helped the victims' families, and detectives who would not give up. And you could see their heart as their heart would break for the families and what the victims went through. So it pulled me back into reality and humanity, even these crime shows. But don't watch gratuitous crap. I'm sorry, just don't watch gratuitous crap that just keeps your mind in the gutter or keeps your mind trapped into a psychological, twisted, narcissistic world. You don't want that. Okay, so I think you know what kind of shows out there might be doing that. So be very careful of that. Loving Life, good to see you, says exactly what happened to me when I cooked. He ate everything but didn't want to give me credit that the food was good. Yeah, they don't, because narcissists think that if they compliment somebody else, if they praise somebody else, that it takes away from them. That's what narcissists believe. They don't give compliments because they think that somehow they raise somebody else up, then they're lowering themselves. And that is absolutely not the truth, by the way. I had to learn to be more free with my compliments, because for a long time I felt that way. After you've been damaged by a narcissist, you don't have a whole lot of self-esteem. So it does feel like if I'm raising somebody else up, if I'm complimenting them, then I just make myself feel worse, because it reminds me of what I'm not, right? I'm complimenting how beautiful they are, and then I feel like I'm not very beautiful, or how intelligent they are, and I'm not very intelligent. So it kind of makes you focus on or believe the delusion that the narcissists try to put on you, that you're not good enough, that you're not as good as other people, that you don't have what other people have. So we have to break out of that. And in order to break out of that, just start complimenting people. Like when you see something good, tell them. It doesn't take from you. And when I started doing that, it actually built me up. It made me feel better about myself when I was able to tell someone like, wow, you know, you did a great job there. That was a beautiful painting you painted. Or, you know, that was a wonderful meal you made. You know, I love your cooking. It makes you feel good when you speak truth. It makes you feel good. So continue to speak truth. Oh, you guys, let me see here. Maria says they do give compliments, but it's usually in the form of love bombing. Yes, yes, absolutely true. So yes, you're right. It's not like they never give compliments, but they only give the kind of compliments that are they're fake. By the way, they don't give real compliments. All right, they get something out. They butter you up. They use compliments as a tool. They don't actually use it as truth. Like they don't really believe all these great things that they're saying. Okay, they say it, but then under their breath they may say the opposite, or in their minds they're saying the opposite. So, all right, you guys. But yes, absolutely, the love bombing stage, where you're the new toy to them, and they can only see good, and they convince themselves that you're the best thing ever that happened to them until they get you, and then once they get you, then you're the worst thing that's ever happened to them, right? Yeah. There are other things here I wanted to read to you too, because this I want you to hear this, because this was written not by a psychiatrist, okay, or a psychologist. It is written by someone who observes the public forum, who observes used to he's passed away since, Ludwig von Mises, Mises. Look him up. It's written by someone who observed the economics of a country and how a country can succeed and how a country implodes, or what causes the implosion of a country, and its economy and its welfare state. You know, it's not welfare state, but it's welfare, because there are philosophers out there that want to make sure that an economy is self-sustaining and grows and is beneficial to the most people. Now, you can't take care of everybody 100% all the time. Just like they say, you cannot please 100% of the people 100% of the time. You just can't. But you can please some of the people some of the time, right? And what this philosopher wanted to do is find what benefits the most people most of the time. And it shifts, by the way, because, you know, we go into cycles. And if you lose your job, obviously you're not benefiting yet, but you have the opportunity to get another job and then improve your situation. So that's what economists and philosophers who look at the economy, and look at public. I'm going into this way maybe too far for this channel, but I just wanted to introduce that to you guys. Oh, let me answer this question really quick before I read to you another part of this introduction. Do-Ra, or Do-Ray, I'm not sure. Thank you for asking this. It says, my kids were introduced to the new supply. I can understand she has his same issues. Will my children be belittled and treated badly? I'm concerned. Yeah, this is, you know what, Do-Ray? It's possible. I don't think it's likely that they'll come unscathed, by the way. There is reason for your concern. You know, and I know, and everybody here knows that narcissists are not nurturing people. They are not selfless. They are not good role models. So what you do, though, is you teach your children how to have boundaries, okay? And you teach your children to trust you, okay, so that they can tell you whatever. Now, don't make up stuff and tell them, like, if your dad does this, or if his new supply does that, or his new girlfriend does that, tell me. You don't have to, but you can just talk to them and say, was it a good day? Was it a bad day? What was your highlight? What was your low light? And this is how maybe you start to start the communication between you and your children in case something comes up. All right. I used to do this with my kids. I would lay in bed with them when they were little, and at the end of the night, read a story and stuff. But then we just hang out there for a while and we just stare at the ceiling and snuggle or whatever, like that, and say goodnight, goodnight prayers and stuff. But we would also, I would take that opportunity to just ask them about easy things, like what did you have at lunch today at school, or who did you play with today, and you start the conversation like that. But then it's really amazing when you start the kids down talking about things like that they're comfortable talking about. Then within a few minutes they'll start telling you the things that bothered them that day, or when someone did something to them that day that was rude or hurtful. And then as a parent, you can help them. Because if you go to your kids and you say, so did somebody treat you badly today? They're going to be like, what? No, huh? No. It almost feels like an attack to them. So they need to be in a safe place, in an environment where they feel secure and that you care and you're not running from thing to thing and barely hearing them. They need to know that they have your attention and they feel secure before they start telling you the real things on their heart that hurt them that day. And that's how you develop emotional maturity in a child. A lot of times, I remember my son used to say to me, when I'm busy and running around like crazy, and he would say, Mommy, I don't like it when you say, uh-huh, 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 because I'd be cooking or cleaning or driving and he's talking and I'll just, because I'm like, uh-huh, yeah, yeah, uh-huh, uh-huh. But he knows I'm not really hearing. I'm not really 100% engaged. And kids know that. And when you're not engaged, they're not going to let down their guard and tell you the things that really are on their heart. So, Doree, that's what I would recommend to you. Treat them well so that they can tell the difference when someone's not treating them well. Okay? And carve out those times for you to get close to them and build a rapport with them and conversation with them. And you start off with funny, happy things, and then when they know they have your full attention and it's been a few minutes, they'll start telling you. They'll start telling you the other things that are on their heart, and then you can help them with that, right? That's how you're going to know what's going on at your ex's place. That's how you will find out. But if you come right out and say, what did they do to you today? What did they say to you? Or where did they take you? The kids are going to start catching on that you're just fishing for information because they're going to start feeling like it's not because you love them, it's because you're obsessed with the ex. So kids who are dealing with separated parents or divorced parents catch on real quick. They're not dumb kids, right? They're smart. They're very on it. So anyway, I hope that helps. Here is some more of what I want to read to you. And this, I hope, will shed some light on what narcissism looks like. And it is psychotic. Already, Ludwig von Mises says that you cannot pull this neurotic, right, this narcissist out of their own narrative. They have to do it themselves. They have to, at some point, come to the conclusion that they are living in a delusion, because you cannot even give them facts and evidence to convince them that their delusion is absurd. And why is that, right? Why is that? And that's why I titled this thing, how psychotic are they? How psychotic are the narcissists? And why? On the one hand, it seems that, okay, I'm sorry. I started back too far. He talks about the flaws in Marxism, that there are two tenets that Marxism stands on. One is there is no scarcity. They believe there is an abundance out there for everybody, so there is never any scarcity. Even though you and I know there is scarcity. Take a look at the climate control or arguments where they're saying we're running out of fuels. Well, if they believe we're running out of fuels, then there's scarcity, right? If we need wind and solar energy because there's no more oil, or oil is scarce, then they do understand their scarcity. And yet Marxists will have cognitive dissonance. They will separate from logic in order to support their ideology that there is no scarcity. That is one of the tenets of Marxism. The other one is that work is will working in a socialist community would no longer become a burden, and in fact would become a pleasure. So they believe that the primary necessities of life, the work that we have to do, will actually become a pleasure and enjoyable, and everybody will live in this beautiful world where everybody just takes care of everybody and there's no narcissism and everybody wants to help one another. It doesn't occur to them that there may be people who are forced to work in order to provide for the needs of others. It just doesn't occur to them that that happens, because they may be on the receiving end of that equation. So they don't see the toil and the hard work of the person providing for them. So this is the delusion. He goes into saying Marxism believes that Marxism believes that from the height of its scientific socialism, it is entitled to look down with contempt on romanticism and romantics, meaning they think that everybody else who's not basing their evidence on their science, right? The narcissist science and the Marxist science is real science to them, and everybody else is living in a fantasy world. That's what they believe. But in reality, its own procedure is no different from theirs. So meaning that the narcissist science is just as made up as they believe other people's science is, because their science evades certain truths in order to stand up, okay? Instead of removing the impediments that stand in the way of the realization of its desires, it too, Marxism also prefers to let all obstacles simply fade away in the mists of fantasy. And I brought that, the two tenets that they stand on, which is scarcity. They don't believe in scarcity unless it serves them. Here's the double standard, unless it serves them. And they say, well, the rich are taking too much and there's hardly anything left for us, so they need to share. So we have to, and I'm not saying that we don't share, okay? You guys don't get this out of what I'm saying. But they believe that there is no scarcity out there. I've spoken with, I don't know that she's a Marxist, but she probably is now. But she definitely is a confessed liberal, left, I don't know how far left, but I remember having a conversation with her, and she was very mad at me because we were talking about the human condition and what's the best way to help people get on their feet. Is it to give them a fish, or is it to teach them to fish? That old argument in that old adage. Of course, she believes give them the fish, because they may not be able to fish, is her argument, right? And by the way, there is no scarcity in fish, so we'll never ever run out, is her thinking. So definitely they do believe that there's no scarcity, and yet there is. Like, there is scarcity when the area that you live in, if you allow, I was in Africa once, and there were, I think it was the World Bank and IMF, International Monetary Fund. There are organizations and USAID where we go into third world countries and we help them by building some infrastructure, or something that we think will help their economy and help them survive. And I remember in Africa, they were near the Sahara Desert. They were thinking, oh, we'll supply these people with goats and cows and farm animals so that they can raise their own food. And it sounded like a really great thing. But the reason I'm telling you about this is about scarcity. So how can there be scarcity when you're providing them with all these things, right? Well, what happened was the farmers with the goats, they were not trained how to replenish the land when the goats would eat up the grass. And so then this country started facing encroachment of the desert, Sahara Desert, into its green areas, because the goats were eating up all the grass at too fast of a rate. They weren't farming the goats in a way where it could be sustainable, and there was scarcity. And now there was not enough food for the goats to eat, and now the goats were dying. And once the goats were dying, then there was not enough food for people to eat. You see what I mean? There is scarcity. So Anyway, back to this. Sorry, you guys. They don't face this reality. Narcissists will not face the reality of the pitfalls of their solutions. They don't get it. They won't believe it. And in fact, they believe that they stand on science and facts and everybody else is in a fantasy world. That's how crazy narcissists are. So let me read this little part too. This is a really good part. In the life of the neurotic, the saving lie has a double function. It not only consoles him for past failure, but holds out the prospect of future success. You hear that? So this lie or delusion that a narcissist lives in, or a neurotic, or a deluded person lives in, the reason for their delusion is that it consoles them for their past failures, right? It tells them it's not your fault. It was everybody else's fault. It was out of your control. Let me continue to read on. In the case of social failure, which alone concerns us here, the consolation consists in the belief that one's inability to attain the lofty goals to which one has aspired is not to be ascribed to one's own inadequacy, but to the defectiveness of the social order. So it's not my fault. It's the situation I'm in. It's not my fault I lost my job. It's the company's fault because they didn't provide me with enough stuff or whatever. You know, I mean, there are cases where that's the truth, but narcissists will never see where they have any responsibility. And neither does a Marxist. The malcontent expects from the overthrow of the latter the success that the existing system has withheld from him. And what that means is the narcissist is not content, right? And they expect that if they get rid of their enemy, now the success that their enemy was withholding from them will come. That is how crazy narcissists think. And this is why I think that Marxism is also a totally narcissistic way of thinking. Consequently, I'm continuing to read to you guys. Consequently, it is entirely futile to try to make clear to him that the utopia he dreams of is not feasible, and that the only foundation possible for a society organized on the principle of the division of labor is private ownership of the means of production, which essentially means free markets, right? And property ownership. Like when someone owns something, they take better care of it, generally speaking. Not always, but generally speaking. When you work hard for something, you generally will take more care of it. But when something's given to you, yeah, for a while you prize it and you appreciate it, but then you realize it has no value to you and it was just given to you anyway, and then you start treating it badly. That's generally what happens when you don't have private ownership. So the neurotic clings to his saving lie. And when he must make the choice of renouncing either it, his lie, or logic, he prefers to sacrifice logic. Did you catch that? The narcissist will prefer to hold on to their delusion, right, rather than embrace facts and the evidence that's right in front of them. Like your house could be burning down, and they will say, no, 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 just let it burn to the ground. The insurance will take care of it, and don't worry, you'll be able to replace everything. Instead of thinking, wait a minute, here's the reality. There are things that are irreplaceable in there. There are things that may not have value to the insurance company. And by the way, the insurance company doesn't cover everything, right? They only cover a certain amount. And it depends on what they value your things at. So the narcissist does not stop to think about reality. They will allow things to be destroyed and not think logically about it, that this is destruction. Destruction does not build. Okay, destruction is destruction. Here's the rest of it. For life would be unbearable for him without the consolation that he finds in the idea of socialism. It tells him that not he himself, but the world is at fault for having caused his failure. And this conviction raises his depressed self-confidence and liberates him from a tormenting feeling of inferiority. Did you guys catch that? Sounds totally narcissistic, right? Let me read it again. It's really important. Life would be unbearable for him without the consolation that he finds in the idea of socialism. It tells him that Not he himself, but the world is at fault for having caused his failure. And this conviction raises his depressed self confidence and liberates him from a tormenting feeling of inferiority. That's why people who do not build for themselves would gladly take from others who do build. And narcissists are just like that. They have these standards where they will cheat, lie, and steal, right? To get what they want. And yet when someone cheats, lies, and steals from them, oh no, that's not acceptable, right? But they convince themselves, they console themselves that it's okay to cheat, lie, and steal from others to benefit them. It is total crazy town. And that's why I want to bring that out to you guys. Total crazy town. And that's why a lot of times I feel like I get so frustrated because I feel like these narcissists, these socialists, these Marxists have brought freaking crazy town to our country, to the public square. It is no longer in your private, smaller pond, right, that you live in. It's now the entire country. It's everybody, it's neighbor against neighbor. They've brought people against each other, even family members against each other because they're embracing different ideologies. One is deluded and one is based on self, how do I say, self-responsibility. One is based on how do I fix this myself? What choices do I have? Taking responsibility. And there are some really awesome people out there. I hope you guys would look them up who to talk about this. There are people who come out against. I hate to bring out topics and sides and all that, but some people out there who will say, "What are you talking about? I have no opportunity. I have plenty of opportunity. I can go out right now and get a job. I can switch jobs if I want to switch jobs. I get raises. I get I have a home. I have a car. How are you saying that I'm not able to do this? I am. I'm able to do this because I choose to do this. Now, do we all start at the same place? No. Some of us, start off in a really horrible place. I was born in a war-torn country, and I was put in an orphanage. I had nothing. So I was born into poverty right there. And I was born where also physically I was not taken care of. So nutritionally, I did not have what a lot of babies have here in the United States when they're born. They get nutrition. They have vitamins. They have food, right? So I'm just like, no, we don't all start off at the same place. But in this country, we all have an opportunity. We all have a choice that we can make. Now, some of those choices are not, we don't all have the same choices, okay, at the same time. And like I said before, remember this, what is most beneficial to the most people most of the time? That's the best we can do. We cannot make everything beneficial to everybody at all the same time. And that's what socialists believe. They believe that you can be beneficial to everybody at all times. And that's not reality, you guys. Absolutely not reality. And for narcissists, they're stuck in their delusion because it makes them feel good. It protects some crazy lie that they have been living in. Well, I had actually written out something for you guys. Let me see if I can do it. Bring it up on my little computer screen here. So just to encapsulate what I've been talking about today, I'm going to read to you what I wrote this morning. And it's, to understand the workings of a narcissist, I go into their head and have to sit in this space. To sit in this space in order to describe what I see. It's a very disturbed and dark room to be in, and I don't like being there at all. I think that many people sit in that room and have never been able to get out. The thinking is so delusional that facts and evidence is seen as lies or just thrown out altogether. Truth is prohibited because it challenges the very existence of this person's, the narcissist's, identity and what they have built their identity on. They would rather cling to hate and delusion because they believe these things will destroy their enemy and save them. This is why narcissists and delusional people will destroy themselves in the process of destroying their enemy, whom they despise. You can't change the mind of a narcissist. He or she will cling to their suppositions rather than entertain truth and logic. That's why narcissists are so illogical and contradictory and have double standards. Narcissists will cling to their saving lie or delusion because they would rather blame the world than take responsibility for their own failures. This conviction, oh, and then I quote what Ludwig von Mises had written, which was, this conviction raises his depressed self-confidence and liberates him from a tormenting feeling of inferiority, unquote. It is this delusional state of mind where he will have self-worth. So to challenge that delusion, you would be challenging his worth and his identity, or her identity. If you dismantle their social construct, you will be dismantling the narcissists. They are nothing without the delusional world they've built around themselves, where others are responsible for their failures, and they are merely the victim, who then becomes empowered to attack and destroy their enemies who caused their failures. This kind of thinking can only be destructive as it consumes rather than builds. Are you guys there? Yeah. Absolutely. This is what is happening right now in the public forum. And that is why it just drives me crazy to watch this. But thank goodness, thank God, that there are good people out there who are calling it out, who are pointing out the truth, who are pointing out the fallacies of the Marxist ideologies. It's, truth is going to come out, by the way. You talk about karma, Obi-Wan. Truth also will succeed. Truth always comes out. One of the things I want to point out to you guys is, what frustrates me, by the way. I don't know if you guys had seen this, but Pelosi had come out calling the peace agreements that have been coming together in the last 2 weeks. Insanity, by the way. This is absolutely blows my mind that there are peace agreements in the Middle East. I had studied the Middle East conflict, the Palestinian and Israeli conflict, and written my dissertation on it. I've done, so I'm very, very familiar with what's going on in the Middle East. And nobody ever thought there could ever be peace in the Middle East. And they still don't, right? But there are steps being made right now that nobody ever thought could be made. But guess what Pelosi calls that? She calls the peace agreements a distraction. A distraction. That's what she calls them. Because, by the way, all the wars that she favored and her colleagues have favored and have implemented for years, for decades, by the way, kept us in wars. World War II was supposed to be the war to end all wars. And yet, we've been in wars ever since. I don't know that there was a time where we weren't at war with somebody or subverting a government somewhere. And, by the way, those wars, those were the distraction. Those were the distraction of the corruption that has been going on in our government for a long time, you guys. And it is all coming out. But this is what narcissists do. They project, they blame shift, and they create cognitive dissonance. And they gaslight. They're telling you what you see here is not what you see. So be very careful of that. This is how it is being brought to our public square. Do not join in to the narcissist delusion. You don't want to do that in your private life. You don't want to do it in your in the life you have to live amongst other people. You want to have order and logic and peace in your life. And that is not what narcissists want for you. They claim to want order and peace and whatever prosperity for everyone, right? But no, narcissists are self-serving. They are going to look for it for themselves. And that's why they have a double standard. Whatever laws apply to you will not apply to the narcissist. That's how they live. And then the thing is, they get their flying monkeys, and in this case, the media, by the way, they get their flying monkeys to continue to advocate for them and to continue their lies, perpetuate their lies and their delusion. And that's why people tend to get caught up in the narcissist web of delusion. Because when you're in it, it seems to make logic. It seems to make sense. It seems to be logical. So you think, well, they're saying these things and it seems right. But when you step back and you look at the entire picture, you realize that their logic falls apart. It makes no sense. It cannot stand when reality comes in, when the truth comes in. The narcissist's delusion crumbles. So you guys, that is the good news. That is the good news. So eventually in your life, you're going to find truth. You're going to take responsibility, make good choices, build up your life instead of consuming other people's lives, which is what the narcissist does. And there's always destruction around them. And they only last for so long. And you think, well, how can they get so successful or have such an amazing life? It's only on the outside that looks shiny, by the way. Inside, it's a desert. Inside, it's dilapidated and falling apart. So, and anybody who's close to the narcissist knows that. They see the reality. But either one, they're too deluded to get out, or two, they're too invested to get out. If the narcissist fails, their life also fails. So they cling to the narcissist delusion. And the more people they can delude, then the more their delusional world continues to exist, where they are benefiting, right? They're so invested in the narcissist delusion and their destruction that they have to keep it going in order to prosper. And that's what these crazy narcissists are doing. Be very careful of that. Do not play with that. It's playing with fire. You don't want to do that. You keep your distance. Don't get envious. And when you start to feel depressed, get on these channels, get your mind straight, get plugged back into reality. Know that you are not missing out on any of this. You guys, the best news is that you are out. You are out of there. And that's the best thing. Well, you guys, let me see some of the comments here. Yeah, Obi, that's what I'm kind of thinking too. She was messed up, but I don't think she was a narcissist. I mean, may not be a narcissist either. A lot of hurt empaths are also manipulative, right? Because they're trying to survive. They're trying to be fed. Their ego, that is. They're trying to get the attention they need. And they may not be narcissists. They're simply hurt empaths. Yeah. Yeah. BB Scott says, you are hitting home runs. Yeah. 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 Obi says, actually, I was corrected, but experience what I put people through. Yeah. And others through. Yep. Oh, yeah. The narcissistic world, Obi says, is like the Matrix. You know it exists, but hard to explain. You got to experience it to know it exists. Yep. Absolutely. You guys, I wanted to encourage you by telling you, first of all, we have to educate ourselves, right? We have to know what we are facing. We have to know the enemy. And I hate to call them the enemy, but we have to know our destroyer, the person who's coming against us, the attacker. We need to know what their tools are, what their manipulations are, what kind of tricks they use in order to not fall for it. We need to see the truth always and stand back and question, like, wait a minute, what was that about? Why did that happen? Instead of taking their word for it, right? You want to do that. And you want to hear the voice of reason from others. Do not shut out things entirely. And it gets kind of confusing out there because there is a lot of information out there. I was talking to someone just yesterday, a librarian, and who's caught in this confusion. And, you know, I don't want to go into it. Well, okay, I'll go into it a little bit. She was saying how her science or the things that she's reading and stuff make sense to her. And I'm like, yeah, but you need to look at the other science too. Like, look at the other science and then compare the two. Compare the two and see which one makes more sense, right? So a lot of times people will stick to their one explanation or their version of science and not look at the arguments of the other, like the full arguments, not the one or two sound bites that were given to them to make them think, well, that's a ridiculous argument the other side has, right? The very weak argument. So that's all they'll look at. When they look at the other side's argument, they're not going to look at the strong arguments. They're going to look at the weak arguments and then say, see, that doesn't prove anything. And that didn't take down my argument. It doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove that your argument's right either, because you chose the weakest argument that came out of that side, and maybe even out of context, to try to prove that yours is right. You know, it is total crap, by the way. So the problem that a lot of people have, sadly, and even this librarian, is that they won't look at the full story. They won't look at the full two sides of the argument. And I've listened to a lot of both sides of the argument, and I can see the benefit of one science and what it says, and there's some truth to it. And then I can see the other one, where there's like almost all of it is truth, you know? And I'm like, whoa, okay, just because there's some truth in yours doesn't mean that it can even stand up to the argument over here that disproves the lockdown, the infringement on your freedom, the way, you know, they want to live this new normal. I'm like, this is not how we were created, to be imprisoned by each other and living in a Nazi-like environment where your neighbors are telling on you if you're not towing the line. Come on, open your eyes. Look at what the heck kind of society is this? Why would you want to live in that kind of society? Because in the moment, at this moment, you think you're the one who's in control. You think that the Nazis that are telling on their neighbors are the ones you agree with right now, until they turn on you, until you're not towing some line that you don't agree with them, right? Some line that you don't agree with them on. And then suddenly they're going to turn on you. These are fascist regimes that they are trying to implement, controlling fascist regimes. And then yet they're calling themselves anti-fascist? No. By the way, you know, if you study history at all, you will see that this has happened over and over and over again. And I remember when I was younger and was learning history, I was really confused by the terms used to label different groups of people, right? Like freedom fighters. I'm like, wow, that sounds like a really great thing. Actually, I don't know about freedom fighters, but this is something that would be a misnomer to a fascist regime, right? They want to call themselves fighters for freedom, and they're not. And they want to call themselves anti-fascist, but the ideology they're pushing is fascism, control, telling on your neighbors. You know, I set a rule that you all have to follow, but I don't have to follow. That's a fascist regime, by the way. And you cannot call, but they'll call themselves anti. I'm like, what? So I think a lot of young people right now, just where I was when I was in my 20s and in my teens, I was very confused. I thought that the name described the organization. I thought that the name represented the organization. But the name was actually the opposite of what the organization stood for. The total opposite. Oh, think about it. PLO, Palestinian, let me say this right, Palestinian Liberation Organization. So you think Liberation Organization, that sounds like a fantastic organization. And yet they were terrorists, okay? They were terroristic. But the other side was oppressing them. So we have to take a look at that. And this is what's so crazy right now. This is what's so crazy right now in the Middle East. There are peace talks. And actually Palestinians may be coming to the table to talk to the Israelis. There may be peace. Oh my gosh, you guys. Anyway, this is very, very good. Nobody ever thought this would be coming. Before I leave you guys, I do want to read to you a Rudyard Kipling poem that I talked about on my last live stream. It is so beautiful. It is so good. And I want to analyze every part of it with you guys, but I won't. I'll read right through. But I want to highlight some of the parts because these are life lessons. And this is what you want to build your life on. You want to build your life on solid truths. Truths that build character, not delusion, right? We don't need the delusion anymore. Narcissists need the delusion because they tie their identity to their delusion. You don't have to tie your identity to a delusion. You should be able to let go of a delusion when you realize it is fake. don't fight for it anymore just because you have tied your ego to it, right? Or you've invested so much of yourself in it that if it should fail, if your delusion should fail, then your prosperity should fail. And here's what I loved about what Ludwig von Mises said earlier. I read to you guys how a normal person, when they see failure or when they go through failure, they pick themselves back up. So don't be afraid of failure. It's okay to fail. Narcissists, they run. I mean, we all want to run from failure, so that's normal, by the way. But narcissists will not face their failure, take responsibility for what part they failed in, and then fix themselves to be stronger, smarter, better character people. They don't do that. They instead project the failure onto other people. They project the responsibility, what should have been their responsibility, onto other people. They blame shift, right? And they gaslight you into trying to believe that they were the victim. You don't want to live like that. So this is the reason why I wanted to read to you this poem. Let me read this real quick, some of the comments here. Yes, Gloria, exactly. Says, I'm relieved I don't have to deal with him coming home drunk and calling me names. Yes, right? So don't be depressed. Be excited that you don't have to deal with that kind of abuse anymore. Be excited that you don't have to live under that oppression anymore. You are free. You are free. So let me read this poem to you guys. Rudyard Kipling, the poem is called If. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. Meaning, examine what they're saying. You don't want to disregard or discard everything other people are saying. You want to listen. Maybe there's something in that criticism, right? It could be constructive criticism. So if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give away to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, that means don't allow yourself to live in this fantasy world where the dream is not becoming reality, but instead overtaking reality. Don't do that. If you can think and not make thoughts your aim, so don't get stuck in your thoughts or your identity, okay? So if someone disagrees with your idea, then suddenly you feel like they're attacking you as a person. Don't make that. If you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same, meaning don't, like, triumph and disaster, they're the same. It's all experiences in life. Don't be afraid of either one of them. Embrace triumph, but when disaster comes, learn from it. Don't run from it and treat it differently. Treat triumph and disasters the same. You can learn from both, right? If you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. So if you can bear to see the narcissist, and this has happened to all of us, blame us and twist our truths into lies, trying to convince and gossip to other people, lying about us, it has happened. If you can do that and stand up to it and not be broken, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings. So there you go. And never breathe a word about your loss. It's okay if you failed. It's not a huge deal. You pick yourself back up and you start again. If you can gamble, your entire life, and some people have, right? They've lost everything. And during this time, this last season, through the spring and summer, some people have lost everything. They've lost their entire livelihood. They've lost their homes to foreclosure. They are not able to pay their bills, and they know they cannot get out from under this because they no longer have a business to go back to. It's gone. So if you can lose everything and yet start again, that's what it's saying. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after you are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And which is more, you'll be a man, my son, or a woman, my daughter. So this is Rudyard Kipling telling you that don't get so haughty, that if you can brush elbows with kings and ambassadors or movie stars or raps, music stars or sports stars, and still be able to have your feet on the ground and not feel inflated, right? And you don't lose the common touch. If you can walk amongst them. These are the types of, I guess, celebrities, if you will, that I appreciate. The ones who are mega stars, and yet they are humble. They actually care about people. They're not about, well, look at me, and I should walk in a room, and everybody should do what I want them to do. Don't lose that common touch. Yeah. And I like that too. If neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, right? If all men count with you, but none too much. Meaning, like, don't put all of your worth into some other person, right? But you want to give worth to other people. You want to see that they are worthy human beings, just like you are, right? Worthy of respect. And you want to be kind to other people. But don't do it to the point of destruction to those around them or to yourself. Yeah. Such a good poem. Such a good poem. I love it. And he talks about holding on. If everything should be lost and gone, and you can still hold on and say, and your will is to continue. Keep doing that. Keep doing that. You're going to make it. And he says in the end, which is so awesome, if you can do all of this, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And what's even more, you will be a man. You will be a woman, a real person of character. All right? Stop blaming other people, even if they twist your words, your truths into lies. He talks about all this. Like, pretty much he covers everything. Losing everything you've ever had, having friends turn against you, people twisting your truths into lies. If you can stand against all of that and not hate, return hate with hate, you're going to be the recipient of everything good that this earth has to offer, essentially is what he's saying. It is beautiful. I love it. I love it. I wanted to leave you guys with that. Think on that. Be that. Look it up. Look up the poem If by Rudyard Kipling and print it out. Put parts of it around your house to remind you, I'm not the only one who's going through this. I'm not the only one that's been attacked or lost everything or been lied to or been mistreated. And if Kipling can stand up to all of that, so can I. Yep. Yep. Gallifrey Ocean. Yeah, isn't that ridiculous? Yeah, it is a Gallifrey Ocean says, I'm in the UK and we are headed for another lockdown. The government has told us to tell on our neighbors for breaking COVID rules. Paradise for narcs. Absolutely. You guys, we are in a fight right now of good versus evil. We are. So be careful out there. Be careful. I don't want to go too much into blaming or, attacking anybody. I just want you guys to be aware and to not run towards hate. Always shun hate. Hatred is never ever the way. And those who are espousing hate, turn from them. I don't care which side they are. You don't hate. The only thing you should hate is evil. Hate what is evil and turn from it, and wisdom will serve you. So God has told us already that we need to turn away from what is evil, right? And if it is hateful, it's evil. But if it's destructive and hurts other people and innocents along the way, it is evil. Oh my gosh, another good book, by the way, that I had read recently is called, and I would suggest this to you, but anybody who is on the fence and doesn't know, especially if you're Muslim, this was a really good book for me to read because it gave me a lot of insight. And I have some Muslim friends that maybe they'll read it with me. I don't know. I'll ask them. But it's called Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus. It was written by Nabil Quresh. Yeah, I think that's his name. Nabil Quresh. So, who has since passed away from stomach cancer, sadly. But he was a devout Muslim, and he goes into how he learned to be a Muslim, his environment, the loving family he came from, the education he got, the character. I mentioned him after reading that poem because this guy does have character. He's got, anyway, it's just really interesting. His story is beautiful. It's interesting. It's informative. I would highly recommend it. So, and he comes to the conclusion that love triumphs. Okay, you guys, love triumphs over everything. And there is a difference when one leader is espousing hatred and another one is espousing love. There's a difference. But by the way, the enemy does, and narcissists will cloak themselves, right, to be the good guy. And they will say, oh, yeah, after I destroyed everything, and after I told you to kill everybody, and after I told you to hurt everybody, and after I told you to, this is really love. I'm doing it because I care. Oh, you know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of a battered woman's response to why she stays with her husband. He does it because he loves me, right? That's psychotic, and that is a narcissist dream, to have people that can be controlled like that. We never ever want to allow someone to control us in that way. Well, you guys, yeah, he's had his own channel. Yeah. Yep. Dira says, thank you, amazing poem. You're welcome. Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting what's being revealed right now. Oh, another thing that the Bible says is whatever the enemy, meaning the devil, uses for evil, God will use for good. And everything that we're experiencing right now, it is exposing the evil that's out there. It's exposing the manipulation. It's exposing what we've been distracted from for decades, you guys. Oh my gosh, it is exposing everything. And it's kind of scary, but it's good. It's good because the way that a wound heals is you have to expose it. You have to clean it all out. And that's what's happening now I think, throughout the world, by the way. It really is. And there are some good people on the wrong side. I believe that. There are some good people on the wrong side because they're just deluded. I've been deluded once before. We all have been deluded before. If we are here on this channel and talking about narcissistic abuse, we've all been deluded at some point. So understand and have compassion and sympathy and empathy for these people who are not yet quite aware of the destruction they're causing. They don't realize. Some of them, they absolutely know what they're doing. They're total narcissists. They're neurotics, just like Ludwig von Mises explained. They are total neurotics and will not let go of their delusion, and in fact want to create such a huge delusion that they then become the rulers in their delusional world, where they make us the servants. So be careful of that. You guys, the good news is we are out. We are out of those relationships. There's still work to be done. right? There's still work to be done around us and in us and with those closest to us to help them get stronger and help ourselves get stronger and cling to the truth. There's still work to be done. But the good news is we know better now, so we can do better now. Well, blessings to you guys. I hope that this has been enlightening. I hope this has been encouraging to you. If it has, please subscribe, like, and comment below, and share this video. If you want to, support this channel, I do have a website. It's escapefromcrazytown.com. Go there, and I think there's a PayPal or something on there that my husband has linked. He built the website for me, which is so nice. So if you can go there to make a contribution, that would be so nice. Love to you guys. I hope that this helps you, and I will keep doing this for as long as it continues to help people. Blessings to all, and I will see you next week.